All right, it is currently 6:28 p.m. and I am underneath my bed. I'm showing you what is the placement of impossible light activity that's appearing underneath my bed inside of my bedroom. I am inside of the apartment, which is 1806 North Alvarado Street. You're going to see this light that's on the carpet. You're going to see it's on the bedroom wall right here underneath my bed. This is the mattress. I'm showing you that's the bedroom wall, and that is the placement of absolutely impossible light activity. The demonic objective is to touch on surfaces with the engineered light. And this is what you're seeing while demons who are engaged in the state surveillance system, this is why they're engaging in what is both the exhibiting demon possession, but the ongoing objective for purposes of keeping you under surveillance, which is also accomplishing terrorizing you, is to touch surfaces, the nearest surface, with its engineered light. Not only is this engineered light that you're seeing on the wall, it's also dynamic, okay? And the reason why it's dynamic, it's the trees and the wind that are blowing outside. This is entirely demonic and absolutely impossible. You have seen many iterations of the impossible light while you are looking inside of my apartment today. And what coexists with this is the ongoing stalking by the people of the state. All 59 units that live at the property of Alvarado Gardens are documented by virtue of this impossible light activity inside of my apartment, engaged in what is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is the prima facie case for what is state surveillance that is underway by a government who was acting in concert on a ceaseless basis with the people of the state of California. They are also engaged in not only maintaining presence in your path. I want you to see what is a real-time changing of that light activity, okay? You saw it seconds ago. These are the demon-possessed that are listening to me speak to the fact of stalking with light, okay? That's the documentation of what is terrorism via directed light. I want to be clear. The entity is engaging in what is the maintenance of this impossible light activity and clear violation of the natural environment. Not only are the blinds closed, this is underneath the bed on the bedroom wall. My bed and if you can see this, it's covering the wall. So I just wanted you to see above. And you're looking at what is also real-time movement of that light. And this is the demonic feature. It's also exhibited in the demon-possessed population, their behavior. As I speak to the fact that they're demons, as I speak to the fact that they're stalkers, that they're psychopaths, they go in a frenzy and they engage in more of it, okay? Then that's how you get the behavior of a demon flying in a circle, stalking in the path for 47 minutes. That's how you get that. When you're speaking the truth of both their condition and the criminal activity that they're engaged in, because all of that is supposed to be a secret. Okay, and you also know the truth of what I'm speaking because this is absolutely impossible. Sunlight is not appearing through closed blinds. Okay, the sun is not rising and setting at one address. This is an automatic concession while you're seeing that light activity. This is the evidence of that which is invisible, demon possession. This is also the prima facie case for why it's there, because demons are stalking you. And they're monitoring with communication devices also in violation of Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. Here is another piece of light that's on my... All right, I want you to see... There you go. This is impossible light that's just appearing magnification of what is these small little holes. It's super magnified on the wall right here. But this is the wall. This is the window where the light source is outside of this window, but you're seeing light that's underneath the bed, moving in this direction under the carpet, magnified onto the wall. All right, this is documentation of what is terrorism via directed light. This is what demons are doing when they're crossing path. So the demon possessed that are not inside of my apartment, they are constructively inside of my apartment, which is speaking to what is relevant positioning. This is the evidence of being group stalked by a government. And it is also the ongoing outward evidence of what are the demon possessed, and you're understanding what demon possession actually is and what the demon possessed are engaging in. In addition to, I want you to understand to what is surrounding. These are third-party group stalkers walking in engineer light at the adjacent property, Silverview Townhomes, sitting in her car engaging in surveillance. That's Marie of 1804, number 5, driving on Alvarado Street. And these demons are at one time together, all of them engaging in what is knowledge of what I'm doing and where I'm at. You know that you saw the impossible light activity on my ceiling today. You saw it moving in real time on my ceiling. And these demons are engaged in ongoing corporate invasion of privacy inside of a private space. And this is going to be the prosecution for the government and the personalization of a federal prosecution of the people of the state. And it will be sliced down by name. In other words, Marie, who is group stalking at apartment 1804 North Alvarado Street, apartment number 5, is going to federal prison. And she's also going to be prosecuted as an exceedingly violent sex offender, engaging in what is highly disturbing terrorism in concert with the state, engaging in surveillance by sitting in her car. This demon that knows what I'm capturing on my phone is monitoring on the phone with the state that's stalking a helicopter. She's acting in concert with that entity. And this is why the impossible light is now stretching across to this wall. You have what is absolutely in real time. So this video is 5 minutes long. As I started it, it was a little slither of light. And I want to be clear, as I remained in my room, it stayed in that position. As in real time, as I speak to the demonic, the entity engages in more of that. That's the threat, the public safety concern that results through exposure of what's actually going on in this country unbeknownst to you, this so-called secret society, and the threat to the safety of American citizens in this country when that is no longer a secret and their criminal activity is fully exposed, and the ongoing pattern to engage in more of that threat that is exhibited through the environment, which is an entire scientific impossibility. That's the evidence of the fact that it's demonic and that they are indeed stalking. It is literally an ongoing confirmation of the truth that I am speaking to you. Okay? The entity is maintaining this light source. Also, how are you aware of the fact that this is impossible light? Because first of all, you're looking at the light source, and then you have the inexplicable through closed blinds behind the bed, behind my headboard on the floor, underneath the mattress on the wall, reaching backwards position. You have absolutely impossible light activity. That's speaking to stalkers surrounding, and they're not walking their dogs. They're not holding hands. They're not just sitting in their cars. They're engaged in joint surveillance in a very specific environment where, by the way, at the same time where I started this video, at 6:28 p.m., I am documenting this same exact entity that is engaged in and documented engaged in criminal surveillance. And this is kidnapping by the same entity that sought to obstruct justice on an ongoing basis. And that's why I have at 400 North Pepper Avenue in Colton, California, what is impossible. Not only would there never be any sunlight if that's actually the sun, as I'm capturing it while I remain kidnapped by this entity at state facilitating venue, the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center at 400 North Pepper Avenue in Colton, California, where there would not possibly be any sun both through the window of that facility and also specifically perfectly aimed through the window here in Los Angeles at 1806 North Alvarado Street at apartment number 6 at the same exact time. You also know that while that's supposedly the sun through that window at that state facilitated venue, which I captured on in June of 2022, which is during daylight savings time, the same exact time of year, you have what is never going to result in any sunlight inside of my bedroom, on the floor, on the carpet, underneath the bed, behind the headboard. If that's the sun that I'm capturing on video outside of that room where I remain kidnapped by this entity that is to date engaging in what is criminal surveillance and federal stalking on the venue of the internet in concert and on behalf of the state of California, exhibiting very highly disturbing criminal conduct, the ongoing intent to obstruct justice, which is a pattern by this demon-possessed entity, and to engage in what is ongoing life-threatening stalking behaviors, highly disturbing to the ordinary target individual, that which is inherently designed to psychologically harm and terrorize and torment the ordinary target individual. That's built into the pattern of conduct where demons are engaging what are highly malicious, in other words, demonic methods of stalking you. And that stalking behavior, that stalking presence, that criminal presence is evidenced through the scientific impossibility, which is the environment that surrounds you. There is no shared natural environment between 400 North Pepper Avenue and 1806 North Alvarado Street in Los Angeles, California. In addition, what you also see inside of that state facilitating venue where this entity engaged in criminal defamation and kidnapping. And I want to be clear, it's the same entity which Marie of 1804 North Alvarado Street, apartment number 5, is a part of. She's engaged and she is being documented as the same exact entity engaged in group stalking for years now, engaged in an ongoing impermissible threat, which is relevant to how long she's going to federal prison, while the entity is engaging in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times of stalking in a helicopter in concert with the Los Angeles Police Department now that I'm in the LA area. But I want to be clear, this is the same entity that engaged in kidnapping, which I documented while I remained inside of that state facilitating venue, where those who refer to themselves as medical professionals having degrees, okay, they went to institutions in this state or outside of this state. They are maintaining the proper licensure to engage in practicing in this state, practicing in the medical field, and they are engaged in the state's pattern of conduct, and they are engaged in what is the system's inherent intent to obstruct justice by criminal defamation, and that's exactly what I documented. Abuse for purposes of criminal obstruction of justice of the Welfare and Institutions Code, for specifically 5150, but that's not the only area that I have documented as a matter of what is for purposes of kidnapping by this entity. And these are additional areas of the law that I advocate that need to change, because the entity is engaging in what are methods of kidnapping somebody that's not engaging in any crime while they're keeping you under surveillance. And these are the ways in which they are both seeking to render illegitimate the documentation of the ordinary targeted individual and also silence you. And that is by defaming you and kidnapping you, where you remain subject, by the way, to this demonic system. And that's why I captured impossible light activity inside of that state facilitating venue of what is 400 North Pepper Avenue. That is Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, where there would never be any sunlight like you see inside of that room, while I'm showing you what is the light source outside of that window. And then you're going to juxtapose that with what the entity is doing here, which, by the way, both are impossible, because the sun is both rising and setting while I remain inside of one apartment. That's not the sun, and that's not sunlight. Secondly, you have what is not ever going to be the sun anywhere in Los Angeles if that's the sun outside of the window of the state facilitating venue of 400 North Pepper Avenue. But even before that, if that's the sun that's rising and setting while I remain at 2301 South Euclid Avenue, Economy Inn, where this entity again engaged in what is kidnapping and exercising fictitious resources for purposes of kidnapping, stating that you have a warrant in what is not even a real case, okay? Mary Wendy Victor 2000640. This entity engaged in what is citing a non-existent prosecution for purposes of kidnapping, only to make me try to force me to sign a citation so that they could restart a fictitious prosecution. That's what they did on September 25th, 2020. This same entity that is acting in concert with what is Marie of 1804 number 5, who was to date engaging in what is federal group stalking and monitoring with the Los Angeles Police Department, who was engaging in what is flying over my apartment, doing laps over my apartment over and over and over again, while the entity is engaged in ongoing documented methods of terrorism via directed light, because I remain subject to what is terrorism, which is demonic. And I want to be clear, this system is underway by those who call themselves today medical professionals, mental health professionals, and they were engaged in clear abuse of the law, such as the Welfare and Institutions Code. And this is what law enforcement, these fire departments, these ambulances, these EMTs, and the people of the state together are abusing for purposes of kidnapping. And this is another grounds upon which I advocate changing the laws, especially where you are documenting and prosecuting the public entity that's engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, because you're understanding the ways in which they are obstructing justice, where the targeted individual is both exposing that system, but it's also the means whereby the entity is literally to date kidnapping those that do not suffer from mental illness, that have not broken any law. And this is the means whereby they are kidnapping and keeping subdued, keeping drugged up, keeping captive. The people of the state are acting in concert with them inside of those facilities, targeted individuals. And that I have documented the entity's pattern of conduct. Everybody having to do with the kidnapping at the state facilitating venue of Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, I documented not only the paperwork, the names of doctors, and let me be clear, in the same way that there is no actual respect for some demon that's wearing a badge today, those are demons that are masquerading as medical professionals. They bring shame to that profession, and they're awaiting their federal prosecution, because they're all going to federal prison. You can mark my words. In addition to that, they will never have anything to do with the medical field, not in California, nor in any territory within the jurisdiction of the United States. I want to make sure that you understand that the entity is engaging in what is a pattern of conduct, a corrupt government that intends to insulate itself from exposure and prosecution. That's the pattern of conduct. And these are the weapons whereby the resources that they engage in, while the demon-possessed have strategically placed the people of the state and the entity itself in positions in society, in these industries where that criminal system is facilitated, and it is also in the medical field. All right, it is currently 6:42 p.m. and this evidence of this light activity that you see, this is documentation of what is a sex offense. And the Los Angeles Police Department, I want to go ahead and document that as well. You are looking at what was the sunrise through this window, and this is supposedly the sunset through this window. That's the pattern of conduct, okay? And this window and that window, I'm referencing 1806 North Alvarado Street in Los Angeles, California. I want you to just look at what is my shadow through, let me be clear, there's no concentrated light, all right? The sunlight is supposedly on the wall right here. Understand that that's supposedly the sunlight there, but you're understanding when I'm walking through my dark hallway, this is what is the demonic pattern of conduct, stalking with methods of light. These are demons that are obsessively keeping me under surveillance. It is the documentation of what is terrorism via directed light, which is built into the federal prosecution of a public entity that's engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring and federal stalking on the venue of the internet. Not only are all of the demons at Alvarado Gardens going to federal prison, you are documenting the demons at the courthouses engaged in fictitious prosecutions because they were engaged in the state's pattern of conduct with regard to the intent to obstruct justice. This is insulating itself both from exposure and from prosecution, and that's a crime. And that's what I documented by the civil courts, and I documented it by the criminal courts, who are acting in concert with these corrupt law enforcement agencies who are engaged in obsessive group stalking and monitoring, and then engaging in what is kidnapping you in concert with these sheriff's departments who are monitoring and kidnapping you, and then handing you over to engage in what a fictitious exercise of authority while the entity is also monitoring at the court. That's how I'm capturing the light source, which is over me at the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Courthouse and at the San Bernardino Superior Court. Never is that going to be the natural environment when I'm showing what is the ongoing documentation of this light source for the duration of the day, rising here in LA at the end of the day. In addition to that, when you are documenting the ongoing pattern of conduct, it reasonably follows, and this is based on how you are prosecuting any other stalker, where you have seen the pattern of conduct and it is already established, and that is the case here. There is no alternating, there's no change because you're at the doors of the court. You are understanding how there are no bounds with regard to the state's pattern of conduct, and as unfortunate, as dismaying as it may be, as treacherous as it is, as terrifying as that is, the state is engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring and obstruction of justice, and it is occurring in the courts in the state of California, and that's how I'm able to capture the specific environment. It is exactly within the P.O.C. At no time at 10:29 in the morning is the light source hovering over 215 C Street, the Ovid Family Community Library, where the Ontario Police Department engaged in kidnapping via criminal defamation and the literally manufacturing fictitious charges for purposes of kidnapping by an entity engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. All of those words are speaking to what was kidnapping while they were monitoring me, masquerading as police officers while they're actually engaged in monitoring you, just like you see LAPD doing. This is a threat to your life and liberty while that same entity is engaged in obsessive stalking. I want to make sure that you see this list. The entity is engaged in ongoing obsessive stalking, continuing at approximately on average this hour, it's 6 o'clock, about to be 7, about every 15 minutes while they're listening to every move that I make and every word that I'm uttering inside of my apartment. So I want to make sure that you know that. I'm going to list that down and take a picture of it as I'm documenting an entity and the venue. You see them crossing path on foot with a child, and that's Silverview Townhomes, the whole property, the people of the state, and they're exhibiting impunity while you have a demon that's crossing path on behalf of an entity. All right, so I want to be clear, they are directly engaged in the pattern of conduct. None of that is sunlight that's touching the property or the building. If that's the sunset at State Facilitating Venue Arrowhead Regional Medical Center at 6:28 p.m., we're replete with what is supposed to be sunlight that's appearing on the interior and the depths of the room, touching on the floor and the bed while that light source is captured outside of that window. That's called impossible light activity. It's entirely demonic. It is speaking to the condition of those that are calling themselves medical professionals and nurses and patients. The people of the state are walking around in robes, engaging with taking medication, patients of the entity that's engaged in state stalking, and they're monitoring. Understand that the pattern of conduct has nothing to do with whatever type of medication you take or whatever type of physical or mental condition you claim. It's spiritual. It's demonic. Okay? So understand what's also legally irrelevant. It is currently 6:46 p.m. And this is the documentation of what I've already captured. This is going to be juxtaposed with the prosecution of the state of California. When you're looking at this light activity here that's inside of my room, and you're going to remember what was the so-called sunset outside of Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, where the demon-possessed agency, the corrupt agency, the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, heavily documented, engaged in group stalking as well, in relevant position outside of the facility, where they're also monitoring inside of their facilities, documented, Central Detention Center, Glen Helen Rehabilitation Center, and also West Valley Detention Center. Those are state facilitating venue where the state's pattern of conduct is underway, engaging in what is the maintenance of engineered light for purposes of group stalking and monitoring and federal stalking inside of those facilities. This is evidence that's going against the state facilitating venue. All of those inside of the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, by the way, inherently in violation of laws such as HIPAA while they're engaged in the P.O.C. And that's exactly why that environment is there, because it's not the natural environment, and it is impossible that the two are also occurring at the same time. So in any way you want to look at it, it is indeed the P.O.C. It is currently, again, 6:47 p.m. P.O.C.